Dropping on ISIS targets in Syria and Iraq now this morning. Most Congress members are back home campaigning for the upcoming midterms, right? Both houses of Congress did vote, though, to fund and train Syrian rebels. Lawmakers have left unresolved the issue, though, of authorizing military action in Syria specifically. So let's talk about this with Democratic Congresswoman Barbara Lee of California and Republican Congresswoman Ileana Ros-Lehtinen of Florida. Ladies, thank you both so much for being with us.
Pleased to be
Thank you.
Sure. I want to start with you, if I could, please, Representative Lee. You cast the sole dissenting vote against authorizing the Bush administration to use military force in the wake of 9/11, of course. Now, if Congress were to vote on authorizing military force, where would you stand?
First of all, we have not even had a debate nor a resolution to come forward. And I must say that we wrote to the Speaker August 28th, Congressman Jones, myself, and McGovern, requesting an authorization and a full debate and a vote. We have to talk to the American public about the costs and the consequences of this. And this is our constitutional responsibility. So we haven't even seen a resolution. I know several members are working on one, but I think the first thing we have to talk about is why we are not in Congress debating these very grave issues. And this is our constitutional duty and responsibility. We should be in Washington talking about the costs, consequences, and alternatives, non-military solutions to this very, very grave war and crisis that we're in.
Congressman Ros-Lehtinen, what do you say to that? Why aren't you having that debate right now?
Well, I hope that the president soon presents to Congress an authorization resolution that would authorize these airstrikes. He believes that he already has the authorization. I believe that even if he does, it would give him a greater weight to have the U.S. Congress backing him. I believe that there's sufficient support in the U.S. Congress, as the House and the Senate, to support this military action. I disagree with my good friend Barbara Lee. I don't think that there's a non-military diplomatic solution to these monsters, these barbarians who just a few weeks ago beheaded a constituent of my congressional district, Stephen Sotloff, a journalist. And these guys are going to continue. It's going to be a problem for us, for our national security, and for our interests in the region. So I support what the president is doing. I support what our military is doing. And we wish that these guys, our enemies, would respond to a non-military, a diplomatic solution. I don't think it's possible.
Congresswoman Lee, go ahead. What do you think?
Yeah.
What do you think could be a non-military solution to this?
First of all, let me just say this. The Constitution, we have three branches of government, right? The executive, legislative, and judiciary branch. The Constitution requires the Congress to authorize the use of force, to authorize war, to declare war, not the president. And so I fully disagree, again, with Congresswoman Ros-Lehtinen and others who believe that the president has to come and craft a resolution for us. That is a basic problem. We in Congress have to do our job, and a debate would lay out what all of the options are. We're talking about a comprehensive solution. I think the President at the United Nations and in other forums have talked about the regional strategies. There have to be political solutions to this. We have an operation now that's taking place with the military strikes. We have to talk about ground troops. We know the strikes aren't going to work in themselves only with strikes. Who's going to provide the ground troops there? So the debate in Congress would lay out what the costs and consequences are and what the options are. The Congress has to do that, not the president. This is not his job. We need to, first of all, repeal those two resolutions because we're in either a new war or a new front on a war. And so the American people deserve to hear their members of Congress talk about it, debate it, and make some clear, hard decisions.
Okay, Congresswoman Ros-Lehtinen, what do you say to that?
Well, I agree. We do need a debate. We did authorize to train these so-called moderate Syrian rebels. Probably they're going to be getting trained in Saudi Arabia, even though that was not as specific as where they're going to be trained. But I do agree that we should be debating. We should have a vote, and I hope that we have that vote soon. I don't know that logistically it's going to happen before the elections, but I hope that we do have the vote. My only problem with the president and what he's doing is that he won't carry it through. He doesn't seem fully committed. You're right, an air war is not enough. I don't think we should rule out troops on the ground. I know that folks are sometimes aghast when we say that, but If we're going to be in it, we've got to be in it to win it with our allies. I'm glad that this has an Arab face to it. There are a lot of those countries that are helping us, but we shouldn't rule out any option, and we should give great flexibility to make sure we get the job done. ISIL is not going to stop. They may be calling themselves any other sort of name. It's a global jihadist terrorist network, and to be in a 9/11 mentality that this threat continues to this day.
And there are people who fear that this threat is already here in the U.S. Last word, Congresswoman Lee, what are your final thoughts here?
Well, I think, first of all, you know, Homeland Security, I believe, is prepared. I believe that we have to be very careful. We have to make sure that all of the strategies that our Homeland Security and police force have put in place are adhered to, of course, within the context of protecting civil liberties. But I think that that really makes the point with regard to military strikes and engaging in another war. We have to come up with solutions that are really going to address our own national security here in the United States, and also ensure that the region steps up and takes care of their region and makes sure that the war that's taking place and the sectarian violence and the very horrific ISIS, which we all agree should be dismantled, destroyed, and really dealt with in a very strong way. But we have to figure out how to do this in a very rational way from our country and ensure that more violence does not create more violence and more terrorist organizations, which then will become even more of a threat.
All righty. Representatives Barbara Lee and Ileana Ros-Lehtinen, we thank you both so much for taking the time for us this morning. And we'll be right back.